Okay, let me share my screen. So, well, in our previous class, we were going through BPSK. So, this BPSK is an acronym for binary shift keying, binary phase shift keying. So, here we are using this binary term because here this binary can be splitted into two more terminologies, bi and array. So, where bi represents two symbols. So, in this communication scheme, we'll be making use of only two symbols or only two bits over here. So, thereby mi of t here here I can take on only values starting from 1 to 2. That's it. And in fact, we'll have two message signals, m1 of t and m2 of t. So let m1 of t represent symbol 1 and m2 of t let it represent symbol 0. And in fact, we got to convert this message into some sort of signal, and let that be s1 of t and s2 of t. And here we are converting this because digital signals have to be transmitted over channel, and in order to make them to travel over channel, we got to convert them into some sort of signals. And here, by the time when I speak of signals, we'll be considering some kind of sinusoidal family signals, be it sine or cosine. And then we'll make use of some sort of modulation scheme like binary phase shift keying, that which affects only the phase part of the carrier signal. And in turn will use, there are a lot of modulation techniques available, out of which now let's study only binary phase shift keying. So here in our previous class we did went through a general procedure, wherein any modulation scheme that which we consider should follow some procedure. What that procedure is all about, let's see. So the very first step is to signal representation. So we got to first represent that signal, followed by we got to identify the basis function. Later we got to do this basis function representation, and this signal representation can be thought of as si of t, and this basis function is phi of t. And later we'll be combining these two using Gram-Schmidt's procedure. So we all know that any signal that which we consider can be represented as linear combination of n-dimensional orthonormal basis function. So considering this equation, we can combine both signal si of t with that of basis function phi j of t. And after representing this in Gram-Schmidt's procedure, what we'll do is we'll find out the coefficient values. We'll find out this coefficient values Sij, and how this coefficient values can be found by using this formula. Sij is in turn equal to, if I integrate starting from 0 to t of signal si of t, and let me mind you that here the starting subscript I represents the kind of signal that which we are using, and subscript j represents the kind of orthonormal basis functions we are using. So if we do the integration of this product, we can in turn extract this coefficient value Sij. And in turn, why are we trying to find out this coefficient values? Is we have a reason for that. And what is that reason? We are in turn trying to convert signal into vector form, and this vector form is also called as point form. And why do I need to convert signal into point form? I want to convert it into point form because finally we got to draw a diagram called as constellation diagram. So constellation diagram is a diagram that which contains all the message signal points in Euclidean space. And why this constellation diagram is important? This is important because from this constellation diagram, we can calculate something called as probability of error. We can calculate this probability of error given as capital P, where capital P represents probability and subscript E represents the error value. So, and why do I need to calculate this probability of error? I need to calculate this probability of error because with this value, with this probability of error value, I can evaluate the performance of our receiver. So performance of the receiver has to be evaluated because this receiver is not that intelligent. So it can be thought of as some kind of a blind person who is having the ability to just calculate some estimate of m. So thereby we got to calculate performance, or we got to evaluate the performance of the receiver. So finally, after calculating probability of error, we got to draw the transmitter and receiver block diagram. So this is the common procedure that which we employ when we go through any of these modulation techniques. And for time being, we have considered this binary phase shift key BPSK. So where we are having two message signals, yes, M1 of t and M2 of t, that which are in turn converted to signals S1 of t and S2 of t. And right now, we got to represent what according to our algorithm, we got to represent our signals. So in order to represent signal S1 of t, so let make use of this equation. S1 of t is in turn equal to square root of 2 times EB by TB into cos 2 pi FCT, where the phase value is 0, where the phase value is 0. In a similar way, in order to represent the others message signal M2 of t, we are using signal S2 of t, where signal S2 of t leads signal S1 of t by a phase angle of 180 degree. So you can see that here we are having plus 180 degree phase. And now because of that lead, we'll be lying in third quadrant where only tan is valid. So but we are having cosine function over here, in for thereby we'll have a minus sign outside of it. So in turn, we can think of this S2 of t as equal to minus square root of 2 times EB by TB cos 2 pi FCT. So right now we have successfully represented our signal S1 of t and signal S2 of t. And later get I can get my, so the next step according to our algorithm is to identify the basis function. So in order to do that, what I am trying to do is I am trying to rearrange signal S1 of t, because this is equal to square root of 2 times EB by TB, where EB represents energy of that bit and TB represents bit interval, into cos 2 pi FCT. So this I'll be rewriting. So this square root term I'll be dividing into two terms, in turn two terms, that is square root of 2 by TB into square root of EB. And if I rearrange this, I'll be in turn getting S1 of t in turn equal to square root of EB into square root of 2 by TB into cos 2 pi FCT. Now here if I take you back to Gram-Schmidt's orthogonalization procedure, we had seen that any signal that which we have can be represented as linear combination of n-dimensional orthonormal basis function, and because of which S1 of t can be thought of as equal to S11 into phi1 of t. And in turn, this coefficient value S11 is related to energy of that signal in this fashion, that is square root of EV. So if I compare this equation with that of this equation, so these two are one and the same. These two are one and the same, and because of which we can easily get to know that this part can be mapped onto this basis function phi1 of t. And in a similar way, I can employ the same scheme in for the other signal S2 of t, where this part can be thought of as our basis function, and whereas this can be thought of as the amplitude part or the coefficient part. So here this S11 is equal to square root of EB and S21 is equal to minus square root of EB. And in our previous class, we were about to discuss the mathematical way in which we can extract those coefficient values. And in order to extract these coefficient values S11 and S21, we will make use of Gram-Schmidt's orthogonalization procedures equation, where Sij is given can be found by integrating signal Si of t into phi j of t. So I got to integrate this product term over the interval 0 to t. So in turn, I'll have this coefficient value. So in order to calculate this S11, will substitute. So here both j and I value are equal to 1. So after that, we know the S1 of t value, that is square root of EB into cos 2 pi fct, and in turn we do also know the value for phi 1 of t, that which is square root of 2 times 2 by TB times cos 2 by fct dt. So here I can take out these two terms outside because these are just constant values and they play no role in this integration. So can be taken out, and in turn I'll be left out with two cosine terms, that which forms cosine square. And by now we know, if at all if we are having some cosine function and if we got to do this integration, what formulas has to be used. So we'll make use of this trigonometric equation where cos square x can be thought of as equal to cos 2x plus 1 whole divided by 2. So let's make use of this equation and let's continue with the derivation over here. So here, so this entire thing, so here x can be thought of as equal to, remember x, I can map x onto 2 pi fct. By mapping this x onto this value, I'm trying to rewrite this equation, that which is cos square 2 pi fct in terms of cos 2 times of x value is 2 pi fct plus 1 whole divided by 2 integration 0 to t dt. And as usual, we are having our equations square root of EB into 2 by TB over here. Now, in this integration, this 2 can be taken out of this integration because again it's a constant value. So I'll be writing 1 by 2 over here. And right now I got to integrate these two terms. And because integration is a linear operator, I can apply this integration onto these two terms individually. So I can write dt over here plus integration 0 to t 1 dt. And right now if I integrate this cos function, I'll be getting it as sine 2 into 2 pi fct. So if we are having this sort of integration cos 2x, if I integrate it, I'll be getting it as sine 2x whole divided by 2. So keeping that in mind, if I integrate this, I'll be getting this in terms of sine 2x whole divided by 2. And over here, lower limit is 0 and upper limit is capital T, plus here I'll be getting it as small t 0 to t over here. Now over here, if I substitute upper limit minus lower limit, I'll in turn have it as sine 2 times of 2 pi fc capital T minus sine 2 into 2 pi fc, lower limit is 0, this entire thing divided by 2 plus t minus 0. All I have done is I'm trying to subtract upper limit with that of lower limit after substituting its respective values. Now back here, this, because fc can be thought of as, because fc over here can be thought of as equal to 1 by t, and in turn I can cancel out these two. I can in turn cancel out these two, and I'll be left out with sine 2 times of 2 pi. And we all know that 2 pi radian is as good as 360 degree. And if at all, if you are having multiple of this 360 degree, multiple, or if this 360 degree is getting multiplied with any scalar value, still will be on sine 360 degree itself. Sine 360 degree itself. And 360 degree and 0 are one and the same. Because if I imagine this, so this is 0, this is 90 degree, this is 180, this is 270, and again 360 degree. So 360 degree and 0 are one and the same, and sine 0 degree is equal to 1. Sine 0 is equal to 0. So here this first term is straight away equal to 0, followed by, if I am trying to multiply anything with 0, this entire term is 0, and sine 0 degree is again 0 over here. So these two term vanishes, and we'll be left out. This entire thing boils down to this capital T. So this entire thing will be equal to this. So let me just cross check if I have not made any sort of mistake. Okay, here initially I have made a mistake here. The thing is, uh, if I consider this s1 of t, so here s1 of t is not just equal to square root of eb into cos 2 pi fct. So here this term, this amplitude value should have been declared as, so here you can see that s1 of t is equal to square root of 2 times eb by tb. So let me make some corrections back here. So here I got to change this thing to square root of 2 times of EB whole divided by TB. So here it's 2 times of EB by TB. Now over here, now over here, I can again I can again divide this square root term as square root of 2 by TB into EB. In turn, so this term square root of 2 by TB into half into T over here. Now I'm having same term over here, or if I multiply these two quantities, I'll get whole square, and whole square and square root gets cancelled. I can cancel out those two, and in turn I'll be left out with 2 times 2 by TB, and in turn this 2 gets cancelled with that of this 2. So I can take out this 2 over here, and I'll be left out with this sort of equation. Now here, let's concentrate onto this t. So what is this t equal to? So this t that which we are using to integrate is nothing but 1-bit interval. So this 0 to t integration is nothing but 0 to t is nothing but it's an interval. This is an interval that which corresponds to tb, 1-bit interval. So this t is as good as tb. So this t that which I have used over here, I could have initially started with this tb, but just to avoid confusion, I had maintained it as just t. So right now, by now we did got to know that this t and tb are one and the same. And if I substitute tb in place of t, again I can cancel out these two tb's, and finally we'll be left out with S11 equal to square root of eb. So in a similar way, I can also extract the value for S21 by integrating signal S2 of t times phi 1 of t dt. So all you got to do is substitute the value for S2 of t, signal S2 of t, that which is minus square root of 2 times EB by TB into cos 2 pi FCT into, and phi 1 value over here is square root of 2 by TB cos 2 pi FCT. So if you do this integration, finally you will land on to S21 equal to minus square root of EB. So by this way, we can make use of Gram-Schmidt's procedure in order to extract these two coefficient values. So after extracting these two coefficient values, what we got to do is, so let me consider this. So after extracting this coefficient value, after getting this Sij value, after getting this coefficient value, I can denote it in point form. I can denote it in point form over a diagram called as constellation diagram. So what we'll be doing, we'll be drawing this constellation diagram. So let me take you back over here. So finally, we have extracted S11 coefficient value. So this S11 is for symbol 1. So why is this for symbol 1 or bit 1? Because for symbol S11, we had integrated what signal? We had integrated signal S1 of t, and we had used signal S1 of t for in order to represent M1 of t, where M1 of t was our symbol 1. So remember this symbol 1 or bit 1. So keeping this in mind, so here let me take you back over here. So all you got to do is you got to remember this basic thing. So bit 1 is nothing but our m1 of t, and we are trying to rewrite m1 of t in terms of signal form as s1 of t. So we are trying to represent symbol 1 over here. Remember this. And from signal s1 of t, we had extracted, we did extracted its corresponding coefficient value, and in turn this is representing, this coefficient value is representing symbol 1 over here, or bit 1. In a similar way, this value, this coefficient value h21 is representing symbol 0 or bit 0, bit 0. Now let me plot these 2 points. Let me plot these 2 points on constellation diagram. So back in constellation diagram, what's the value of n that which I'm using over here? So now I want few of you to type it in your chat. So what was the value of n here? What's the value of n over here? Can I have some answers in the chat? What's the value of n? Okay, 2. Any other answers? Any other answers? Any other answers? I have got one answer as 2. First answer as 2. Any other answers? Let it be a wrong. Let it be a wrong one. Need not worry. 3, 1. Okay, Prasad. Prasad has got the right answer. Prasad has got the right answer. So the value of n that which we are using over here is equal to 1. So the value of 1 that which we are using over here is equal to 1. And let me explain you why is this equal to 1. Why is this equal to 1? So according to Gram-Schmidt's procedure, we all know that, or we had solved some problems on Gram-Schmidt's model, right? We had solved some problems on Gram-Schmidt's orthogonalization. So here, just look at this problem statement. How many signals am I having here in this brochure? Can I have some quick answers in the chat? How many signals am I having in this problem statement? Okay, everyone, how many signals am I having in this problem statement? 3, yes. I'm having 3 signals over here. So because of which I'm considering m as equal to 3. And we all know that the dimensionality value n that I consider should always be either be lesser than to that of m or equal to. Finally, it can be equal to that of m. But usually, if these signals will be of dependent signals, if I'm having these dependent signals, instead of using m as equal to 3, will step down for as n equal to 2. So likewise here, if I take you back here, if I take you back over here for binary phase shift keying, so now how many signals am I having in BPSK? How many signals am I having in our BPSK? Can I have some answers in the chat? How many signals have we considered in our BPSK? It's 2. Yes, the answer is 2. So for BPSK, the value of this capital M is equal to 2. That means N should be lesser than or equal to that of M. So N can take on what all values, because M value itself is equal to 2. Now N can take on either 1 or 2. So it can take on 2 if the signals are independent. It can take on 2 if the signals S1 of t and S2 of t, if they are independent in nature. If they are independent, we should have used n as equal to 2. We should have used n as equal to 2. But are these two signals independent of each other? No, they are not independent, but they are dependent. Here, signal S1 of t is dependent on signal S2 of t. How? Let's see. So I can think of signal S2 of t as equal to minus S1 of t. So you just concentrate on this term. You just concentrate on this term. So what is this? This is as good as our signal S1 of t. Only thing is I'm having minus sign in front of it. So signal S2 of t, I can get this signal S2 of t only by associating negative sign onto signal S1 of t. So because I'm having dependent signals, so here instead of using n as equal to 2, I can omit this, because I'm not having independent signals, I'm having dependent signals. Thereby, so I'll be using n value as equal to 1. So dimensionality for BPSK is just equal to 1. So n is equal to 1. Because of this reason, we are having this basis function. We are having only one basis function over here. You can see that we are using only one basis function. If I had n as equal to 2, if I had n as equal to 2 or dimensionality as equal to 2, I should have gone for one more basis function like phi 2 of t, one more equation over here. Or if I had n as equal to 3, then I should have used phi 3 of t, one more equation. But here, because n value is equal to 1, we have used only one basis function. Remember, basis function, the number of basis function is always equal to number of basis function is always equal to dimensionality value, that which is n. So because n value in this case is 1, we are having only one basis function. Remember this. Okay, well, so right now I can extract, because right now we have calculated these two values, that is signal is coefficient value S11, that which is equal to square root of EB, and coefficient value S21, that which is equal to negative square root of EB. So this is representing symbol 1. This is representing symbol 1. This S1 over here corresponds to what? Symbol 1. And this thing corresponds to what? S2 over here corresponds to symbol 0. Remember this. So this is signal 1, this is signal 2. So after getting the vector form representation of these two signals, so now let's plot it. So because n value over here is equal to 1, n value over here is equal to 1, this means I'm having only one basis function, phi 1 of t. So right now, let's be in 1D. So because n value is equal to 1, we'll be in single dimension. So I'll have only one axis over here, that which corresponds to phi 1 of t. And over here, what is the value of signal 1, or what was this coefficient value? So this S11 over here, what is it equal to? It's equal to positive square root of EB. So likewise, what was our signal S2, that which is representing symbol 0? So here it corresponds to coefficient value H21, that which is equal to minus square root of EB, and when I plot it on this phi 1 of t, when I plot it on phi 1 of t, so for signal S1, I'll be plotting it on. So if I consider 0 as my reference point, so I'll be plotting signal S1 somewhere at value square root of plus square root of EB. In a similar way, in order to represent signal S2, I'll be moving same distance. But onto what the direction? Onto the left. I'll be moving a similar same length. So if this is L1, if this is L, this should also be equal to L. I'll be moving similar distance onto the left, and I'll be pointing signal S2, that which corresponds to minus square root of EB. So we call this diagram as what? Constellation diagram. We call this diagram as constellation diagram because it has all the message signals in its Euclidean space. We call this as constellation diagram. And this constellation diagram is important. Why is this important? Because from this constellation diagram, I can calculate probability of error. I can calculate something called as probability of error. So because I'm running out of time, I'll be continuing in my next class. So I'll be ending this session soon. So if you have not typed present in the chat, please do type present in the chat. So in our next class, we'll continue with how to calculate error probability. So in this class, we did got to know how to form this constellation diagram, where this represents signal S1, this represents signal 2, and this entire region starting from 0 to positive infinity, we call this as region Z1, and we call this region starting from minus infinity to 0 as region Z2. And this is important while calculating error probability, that which we'll be considering in our next class. So I'll be ending this session. So thank you one and all.